At 2 in the morning, the ice lab sounded like a sleeping kitchen. Refrigerators hummed. Water clicked in hidden tubes. No one spoke above a whisper. On the steel table lay a length of Antarctic ice, cloudy at the center, clear near the edges, cold enough to burn through gloves. The Beyond EPICA team recovered a core about 2,800 meters long from Little Dome Sea, deep in East Antarctica. The strange part was not the depth. It was what the ice had kept. Air. Sealed away before our kind learned to name the sky. Snow falls softly. Then it gets buried. Then pressed. Year by year. It becomes a page the planet cannot tear out. Analysis indicates this core holds a continuous climate and atmospheric record reaching back at least 1.2 million years. This is not a ghost story. Nothing floats through a wall. Nothing knocks from under the table. The room is haunted by measurement. Before this, the longest continuous Antarctic ice core record reached about 800,000 years. This one extends the archive into older dark. A technician opened the freezer door with both hands. The seal sighed. Inside, the oldest pieces waited in their white sleeves. At British Antarctic Survey laboratories, researchers began analyzing about 190 meters of the oldest lower ice from the core. They did not smash it open. They let it melt slowly, the way a locked room gives up its air through a keyhole. The method is called continuous flow analysis. Ice melts at a controlled rate while instruments measure chemistry, particles, and isotopic signals. The ice became water, the water became data. And somewhere in that thin change, old atmospheres entered modern steel. Antarctic ice cores preserve tiny bubbles of ancient air, giving scientists direct samples of past atmosphere trapped inside the ice. Think of that. Not a reconstruction, not a guess. A breast-sized pocket from a world with different ice, different seas, different silences. Those bubbles help reconstruct past greenhouse gas concentrations, while the ice itself carries temperature clues through isotopes and other chemical traces. If you want to feel the scale, do not start with the number. Start with the room. One bench. One tube. One bead of meltwater. Pause. When the first pocket opens, nothing dramatic happens. No hiss you can hear. Just an instrument accepting air that waited longer than memory. Little Dome Sea lies near Concordia Station, a remote high place where the ice is thick, old, and unusually well preserved. At camp, the wind has a habit of sounding almost human against fabric. Not words. Just pressure, finding every seam. Beyond EPICA is a European effort built to find and study the oldest continuous ice record available from Antarctica. A core is not impressive at first glance. It looks like a pale cylinder. Something you could lift. Something that could outlast you. The record reaches into the Mid-Pleistocene Transition, a period when Earth's ice age rhythm changed in a way scientists still study. For a long time, the planet kept one rhythm. Then, slowly, the beat changed. Not overnight, not loudly, but completely. Glacial cycles shifted from roughly 41,000 year patterns towards cycles closer to 100,000 years during that transition. That is the dread here. Not disaster as a flash, disaster as rhythm. A hand changing the tempo while everything keeps breathing. Nature reported that carbon dioxide concentrations in the core tracked global temperature changes across repeated climate cycles. A molecule leaves its prison. It travels through tubing thinner than a shoelace. Then, it becomes a point on a curve. The continuous analysis also measures particles and chemical elements, the small dirty fingerprints left by wind, volcanoes, and distant continents. Dust is a kind of witness. It does not explain itself. It simply arrives after crossing an ocean that may no longer move the same way. When climate feels abstract, shrink it down. A bubble. A grain. A ratio in meltwater. The planet leaves evidence in small containers. The room keeps its own weather. Freezer breath. Plastic tubing twitching with pumps. A drain swallowing ancient water one drop at a time. A lower voice. Imagine standing there as the machine inhales. The air inside it is older than language. Older than fire carried carefully through snow, The deepest sections contain ice old enough to push the continuous Antarctic archive beyond the previous scientific boundary. Time is not a line in that ice. It is weight, snow upon snow, storm upon storm, every winter pressing its mouth shut. Researchers describe the find as the longest continuous climate and atmospheric record yet recovered from ice. It does not tell the future. Not exactly. But it knows how the Earth behaved before anyone was here to watch. The interpretation is still unfolding, especially around why Ice Age cycles change during the Mid-Pleistocene Transition. That uncertainty is the quiet part. A million-year pattern shifted, and the evidence arrives now as droplets under fluorescent light. Ice core gases let researchers compare greenhouse gas levels with temperature indicators across many cold and warm cycles. One useful way to hear this story is not as warning siren, but as memory. The Earth records pressure, then waits. Late at night, a freezer can sound like a distant engine, or a throat clearing in the next room. After recovery, European laboratories continue analyzing gases, isotopes, impurities, and particles from the core in detail. On a monitor, the past does not look ancient. It looks thin and clean. Colored traces moving across a black field. Dr. Liz Thomas of British Antarctic Survey called the record a blueprint to Earth's climate history. Blueprint is a clean word, but in the cold room, it feels more like a body outline drawn around something missing. Thomas also said, scientists want to understand why the climate cycle shifted roughly 1 million years ago. Why is the word that keeps the lights on? Why did the rhythm change? Why did the old world turn so heavily in its sleep? The next time you hear climate history, picture breath in a bubble. It may help make the scale intimate enough to hold. Pause. Each released pocket joins our air. Not enough to notice. Enough to make the room feel briefly crowded. The core came from East Antarctica, where cold, stable ice can preserve layers over immense spans of time. Remote does not mean empty. It means every sound has room to travel. Every footstep returns from the dark a little changed. Air from 1.2 million years ago predates modern humans by a vast margin. The sample is older than our species. That is the intimacy. Not the ancient is distant. The ancient is something that can enter a tube beside your hand. Scientists are testing explanations involving greenhouse gases, ice sheets, oceans, dust, and orbital pacing, because no single clue is enough. Dust, ocean, ice, orbit. Words that sound clean until you imagine them moving together for hundreds of thousands of years. Consider ancient climate not as a chart, but as a room you enter after everyone else has left. The air still carries them. Chemical impurities in the melted ice can reveal changes in atmospheric circulation, sea salt, mineral dust, and volcanic influence. The pump does not carry what it carries: sea salt, volcanic ash, a warm interval, a cold one. It pulls everything forward. By measuring gases from bubbles, researchers can estimate past concentrations of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Outside the machine, the present continues. Coffee cools. Gloves dry. Someone forgets a pen. The old atmosphere passes through anyway. Nothing supernatural has to happen. The fact is enough. A world vanished, and part of its air arrived after midnight. Whisper. You could call it evidence. You could call it memory. In the room, with the hum, the difference feels thin. The Mid-Pleistocene Transition occurred around 1 million years ago, and this core brings direct atmospheric evidence into that interval. The evidence does not arrive warm. It arrives numbed, sealed, and silent, as if the cold itself has been keeping watch. If this quiet kind of dread keeps you company, like and subscribe. No rush. Just leave the door open a little. The project's next work includes detailed study of gases, isotopes, impurities, and climate signals across the recovered archive. When the night shift ends, the ventilation keeps breathing. The room forgets the people, but not the samples. Maybe that is the wrong detail. Not that the old air survived, that it was always going to be opened here. Earth has changed before, slowly, brutally, without asking permission. The ice does not soften that truth. It preserves it, Scientists hope the record will clarify how carbon dioxide, temperature, and ice sheets interacted during deep climate shifts. The last sample slides into the machine. The tray empties. In the drain, water from a vanished climate finds the same pipe as tonight. Behind the freezer door, more ice waits in the blue dark. Layer upon layer, air upon air. The room keeps humming.